I used to take 2 buses and a train from the outskirts of Northeast Philadelphia to Wilmington, Delaware, 5 days a week to apprentice, and made 0 money. And then would bartend from Friday to Sunday and be there till 3 a.m. I had moved around a bunch. I'd worked in different cities. I worked in Las Vegas for a little while, and I kept on pushing. But in the back of my head, when I was on the train, I would put a song on repeat, and I couldn't even hear the song. And it was just constant thing that I would say. It was just, you have to be great, you have to be great. And I would say this thousands of times, every single trip to work and every single trip home, while staring at and looking at every single up close part of every single piece that I did. And that distance from the idea of great was something that I just had to let go. Because it wasn't that I wasn't going to get great or that I couldn't get great. It was that type of pressure can get you somewhere, but once you get great, no one tells you what the next step is. So if I'm going to have more than one next step, I've got to let that go and find new motivations. My name is Cody Dean, professionally, and I'm a tattoo artist. I've been in the industry for a little over 11 years. I apprenticed for 2 years prior to that. First 4 years of tattooing, I moved around a lot, and I've been with this company at Central Tattoo for 8.5, almost 9 years now. So what drew me into the profession was I thought that I was going to get into the fine art world. During that generation, everybody was told, you got to go to college, you got to go to college. And I was never really good at school. I graduated high school with a 1.9 GPA, which means that they told me to leave. But during the process, I had an amazing art teacher that was putting my artwork in front of really great places at the right time, trying to get me a scholarship because it just wasn't in my cards. And the more I was in these art galleries that she was helping me get into, I was just observing the world. I grew up pretty poor, and art was easy for me because you just need something to make a mark on and something to make a mark with. And I had this art in these galleries, and I just looked at the people that I was gonna have to sell to. Maybe there were a percentage of the people that I got along with, but they weren't all of the people that I grew up with. And I eventually had a moment, I was just like, well, why don't I just put artwork on people? Because then it's for everybody. If my artwork's kept in a gallery somewhere, I might see 1% of people that can even afford to be in that room. But if I put artwork on a person, even that one piece of artwork has an audience of 1 million. So I went for it. Dropped out of all the programs and jumped right into my apprenticeship. It was about 20 days before my graduation. I walked around to a bunch of shops with a bunch of paintings, which a few shops laughed at. They were like, these aren't tattoos, bud. They're great artwork, but that's not really how this is done. And then I had a shop, I'm pretty sure they just wanted some manual labor for free, but I was like, I'll take it. So I got the job there. Probably about a few months later, I actually got the acceptance letter for the scholarship, but I was already in the apprenticeship. I denied it, and because even if it wasn't my money, I was going to waste someone's. I wasn't going to do good in school. It was just never meant for me. I'm good at putting my head down and doing whatever it takes to get to where I want to be. That's what I did. I dove into tattooing and didn't look back. I think just as a kid, not growing up with many resources, I found out that complaining or hoping never really got you anywhere. I knew from a young age that there was always a problem to solve. And if it was a problem in its bare nature, it means that there has to be a solution. You just have to be stubborn enough to find it. And that just kind of carried through my whole life. I mean, it's also very easy for me to say these things in retrospect. A little bit of a position of comfort. It doesn't mean that I'm done pushing. I would describe it as this point in time is probably one of the first times that I've put my head up for air. But there's something that I said to myself a long time ago is life generally asks you for a pound of flesh to get what you want. And I always thought to myself, well, if that's what they're asking, I'm willing to give more. I've always just looked at things, being curious as to either how it works or what I can do, or how can I think about this differently. And being left up to my own devices as a kid, left me wandering without a lot of guidance, kind of left me up to navigate those things by myself. So it was easy to trial and fail. And with enough failure, it doesn't get very scary to just keep on going. What's the worst that'll happen? I'll end up where I started. So it's just like, keep on going. It's kind of, a little bit ironic or a little cliche, but it was like, whenever someone told me that I couldn't, it made me want it more. It was just that like, almost like stubborn will. I didn't know when to stop. I moved out when I was 14, and so it was like a lot more people fall when they have a security net than the people that climb without one, because the other option is death. So your only option is succeed. You might not succeed in a, normal or planned route, but you'll find a way. I almost had my blinders on through all that stuff because I knew what my goal was. And I wasn't gonna stop for anything. So eventually, again, same leap that I had to take to get into the industry, I had to take to get out of my apprenticeship, because it was like, do I stay here? I knew that I needed practice, and I knew that I had to do my 10,000 hours. And I wasn't gonna do that once every 10 days doing a single tattoo. So I had to do something. And I left, took my next leap of faith, and I took my portfolio that had maybe 20 tattoos in it, which is nothing. And I walked around Northeast Philly and asked a bunch of shops for a job. And this one kind of, another small town shop, but it was busy. It was on this like more main street, and they had a lot of walk-in traffic. He looked at my portfolio and was like, all right, it's okay. Someone walked in and they had an unfinished cross. And he was like, I kind of want it distressed in black and gray. He was like, do you trust this guy to do your tattoo? Look at his portfolio. He was like, I think it's all right. I think you can do it. And guy was like, do the tattoo. If it comes out good, you get the job. If it doesn't, you don't get the job. So I did. And he was like, all right. And I worked there for 2 years. For any advice to anybody that's like trying to develop a style in this industry, it's always kind of like, what draws you in? Start there, or try as many things and see what sticks. But for me, it was like, when I was growing up, I always drew a lot of pictures of flowers and things from nature, because no matter the scenario you're in, there's always a flower that grows out of something, whether it's concrete or off of a fence or something like that. There's always something pretty to find to get inspiration from. But I also grew up with like a lot of like hardcore emo music. It was just the era that I was in. And so I also wanted to draw like tough stuff that was in the tattoo industry. So I was drawing a lot of like skulls and daggers with like elegant painted style flowers around it. And more so, I found that people were like, I really like this, but can we just do the flowers? And I was like, I thought that was gonna be the hard sell. I thought that this was the tattoo route, and I was gonna have to hard sell like the stuff that connected more with me. But eventually more and more of that hit my portfolio. So the more I did it, people asked for it. And it was just the question of, well, if people want it and I'm excited about it, then how do I explore it? And that's kind of where I went. Even those people now, like the industry's changed so much even from then. So the stuff that I was inspired by then is behind me, and the stuff that I'm inspired by now wasn't even possible then. So it's like, it's always gonna be changing. But I think that like, find something that connects to you, that like you don't get tired of. And that's what'll build a style within the parameters of what's possible within tattooing. Anybody that says that it's like, what if you run out of designs? No, it's never gonna happen. You're gonna find something new. There's gonna be a person that never thought about getting a tattoo that's gonna ask you a question that you never thought about applying to the body. And if you're an excited person, you're gonna find a way to figure that out. I think that we're always gonna have that. And especially with the destigmatization, it's like, keeping any industry on a fringe will keep certain people happy. But if you have different walks of life that are now comfortable with getting tattoos, they're gonna have different things that they're inspired by. And that's gonna bring new challenges to the industry, which is gonna create new artwork. Like with tattooing, if you think that you should get a tattoo, think about it. It's not going anywhere. And it's like walking into an art gallery. You can love everything there. You don't have to buy anything. A lot of people think that like, oh, well, it's acceptable now, I should. I try to keep my hands out of that. I've had plenty of clients say, I just really thought this looked cool. And I was like, well, you can make up a meaning. If you have relatives like, well, what does that shark mean? I dove into the sea this one time and I saw the shadow in the distance and it made me afraid. So I decided whether or not I should swim towards it or I should swim towards the shore. But in reality, that's complete bullshit. You just really wanted that shark tattoo. So you can find meaning in anything. It's just whether or not that's the meaning to you to get something that's that permanent. And I always leave that journey up to the client. As far as the permanent seal in my hand, I always tell people I put more pressure on myself than the client ever will. I worked at a bunch of shops starting. There was a moment where I was like, I'm learning the tool, but there's still more to learn in what I'm trying to learn. So I need to put myself around people that are exceptionally better than me. Pete Zebley was on my radar. And I reached out and through a few steps, I eventually got the job here. And then once I got here, it was like step by step, my portfolio was getting better and better. I think it was probably a mixture of things, what the expectation as well as like being around other artists that were also putting out excellent stuff. It was just like day by day, I was learning something new. And then outside of that, like the community of Central, it was always like, it felt very much so like an us, not like working for someone. And if you want to be a place that is art forward, you've got to create a comfortable environment. And that's something that they've definitely done. I've been here for 8.5 years and it's awesome. I'm Cody Dean and I'm a tattoo artist.